made contact and shattered.
At some point, Chris locates what's called a dry bag.
Law enforcement had considered Laundrie the only person of interest in the murder of his fiancée, Gabby Petito.
Liberty, a missing 4-year-old. The parents have called in and advised that the mother had went for a walk, came home, now they can't find her. They've been yelling for her. She's been gone for about 10 minutes now.
Turn it over to another agency. Let's get some help.
Hello? John.
Good morning. Hello. How's everybody today? So today we're going to be doing the Delphi case in our discussion, and we have a lot to go through. So I just want to quickly say hello to chat, and I will say hello to chat while I play this pre-recorded information that I put together for you guys. I'm reading an article. One of them's from Daily Mail. I'll link it in the description box, and then the first one I'll link it, but it's I forget who wrote it, but basically it's their opinion on, is Richard Allen a serial killer? So that's what you'll be listening to for the first half of the live stream. And then we're going to go into the article that has a bit of the Kegan Kline transcripts. We're not going to read the entire transcript, but it's just some little bit of bits and pieces, just like we did in the last live stream. So if you missed our first live stream on this case, there were some transcripts being read in that live as well. So I have the transcripts. I'm reading through them. I'm not going to read them, page by page with you guys today, but they are something that I am studying in the background while everything's going on with the case that we know about. So let's just go through the updates. So there's a $20 million bond for this guy, Richard Allen. He is 50 years old. He's been married to his wife since he was 19. There is no arrest affidavit made public. So we don't have the means and the motive, all that stuff we are kind of left in the dark on. They're keeping it sealed and under wraps for protection of the investigation. So there could be people named in the affidavit that they just don't want out in the public setting yet. There's always a rhyme and reason, and they'll be going to court on November 22nd to kind of discuss the fact that it's sealed, and if it will remain sealed, all that will be discussed then. So like I said, I'm going to say hello to chat while I play this pre-recording. So I'll just be typing in chat and we'll get into this right away because we just have a lot to go through. So I'll talk to you guys in chat and let's get going, okay?
What we still do not have is the detailed probable cause affidavit. What we still do not have is the detailed probable cause affidavit, which details why police believe Allen is responsible for the deaths of the two Delphi girls.
As with any homicide case with this notoriety, we seek knowledge. How was this guy right under our noses this entire time? Weren't there any signs? Richard Allen is exactly what you expect a serial killer. Outwardly, he's your average guy. Average looking, polite, reserved, married with children, long-term employment, no criminal record. If I had $1 for every serial killer that was a cookie cutter of the average citizen, I'd be rich. Then the cracks begin to form. Under the reserved demeanor is a monster, a time bomb, someone who is simmering under the surface. Richard Allen has worked at the local CVS for several years. According to local sources, Libby's aunt, Tara German, was waited on by Richard Allen when she needed to process photos for Libby's funeral. Imagine the very man who so brutally murdered your niece is the same man standing before you telling you that he will process your photos for free. The CVS is allegedly the only pharmacy around for miles. It's right there on Main Street. Sources state that nearly everyone involved in the investigation, from law enforcement to family, regularly visit that CVS. The sketch of the Delphi homicide suspect hung on the wall right next to Allen's workspace. There he was, likely standing side by side to the sketch for the world to see, but they didn't see. It's alleged that investigators came by the CVS to inquire about the Delphi murder weapon. Investigators are said to have stopped by the store to see if they sold a specific type of hook knife. Did Allen handle the inquiry? Did he obtain the murder weapon at CVS? We can only speculate. It paints a picture. Investigators standing at the front counter speaking to the killer about the weapon used at the crime scene, right next to the suspect's sketch. Who can we blame? Allen is the average guy. You don't expect the Delphi killer to be the guy standing behind the counter at CVS. That's a typical hiding in plain sight scenario. Then the underbelly of the monster begins to emerge. A former CVS co-worker took to Reddit to discuss working with Allen for 8 months post-homicide. While the co-worker stated that Allen was always polite and easy to work with, he also said that it was common knowledge around CVS that Allen was a recovered alcoholic and had been institutionalized in the past. The co-worker never asked why Allen was institutionalized and never considered he may be related to the homicide. Another missed opportunity by many. Another Reddit stepped forward to state that he worked at JC's bar and regularly interacted with Richard Allen and his wife Kathy. Kathy was described as happy and bubbly. Richard was described as reserved. The worker described an agitated Richard that was upset over a loss in a pool game and went on to physically threaten and intimidate his wife. He saw the monster under the veil. The post on Reddit reads, "I'm a local. Like most everyone in town, I've been racking my brain, wondering how I didn't recognize him from the sketch or any warning signs. I'm a former bartender at JC's. I worked closing shift every Saturday. I've gotten used to Richard Allen's reserved nature and his wife's bubbly personality. I waited on them every Saturday. He was a really good pool player. He always finished pretty high on the board. Well, this particular Saturday, I walked in at 4 as usual, and he had just lost pretty early in the rounds. Rare for him. Well, his wife was still in and was having a really good day. It was slow, so I'd sit every so often with my regulars and BS. Well, Richard Allen was at the table, and you could tell the more time passed, the more upset and angry he was getting. Kathy ends up making it close to the end but loses. She is bubbly, so she's just in her own world, bouncing between the regulars' tables and the pool tables, literally in her own world. She loses, comes and sits at the table. I go and sit, and she's happy, saying things like I had such a good streak and so on. Bubbly, barely notices him in a bad mood. He's standing at this point, agitated. He wants to leave and keeps hounding her. She says something like he probably wants to go home and sit around, and he goes, "Oh, we'll go home, but I'm going to beat the F out of you in the parking lot first." And someone goes, "That's not cool to say, man. Can't talk to your lady like that." We were all in shock. I could feel the energy shift. And she leans forward, sort of bobs her head and says, "Yeah, 'cause that's real effing funny," with a disgusted look on her face. He's gripping his chair, like leaning on it, but tightens his grip and doesn't break eye contact with her. I'm telling you, he stared her down until she got her case and said bye to everyone. I remember being worried, so I propped the door open and watched them get in the car and leave. This incident was completely out of character for a nice guy I had known or thought him to be. Other than this one incident, he was always happy, kind, reserved. I remember thinking no way could Richard Allen have been involved. I told multiple people that. But remembering this incident tonight, I can honestly say I think he could have been capable. I can admit I don't know them other than the bar setting, so I won't be able to answer any questions. I really don't feel good about posting this either, since it is not my relationship, technically not my story to share. It's just crazy the situations you overlook and things you connect when you look back. And that post is anonymous on Reddit. The monster under the surface will always reveal himself. The more time someone spends with a serial killer, the more the underbelly is seen. While he may appear reserved and cool on the surface, those in close contact can experience an intimidating, controlling, violent psychopath. Any person who can commit such a brutal act of murder, who can callously stage bodies, who leaves his signatures at the scenes, this person is going to display controlling and violent behavior. A serial killer can often control his emotion and put on that external velour of reserve in an effort to hide the inner demon. Eventually, the inner demon must show himself. This is why we typically see a period of rage and then a cooling off period before another episode of rage and another cooling off period. This cycle will usually continue until the killer's death, arrest, or becomes physically unable to commit such an act. All the signs were there. Richard was an alcoholic. He was institutionalized for a period of time. He had allegedly shown violent tendencies. He resembled the sketches. He drastically changed his look after the homicides and lived just over a mile from the crime scene. According to some locals, Allen family were regular visitors of the Monon High Bridge. Yet, it appears Allen remained under the radar. The Allen home was literally at the end of the creek and trail that branches away from the scene of the murders, located in a triangle that actually points toward the crime scene. He could have walked from the crime scene to the home virtually undetected in minutes, a route often discussed by sleuthers. We can only speculate how investigators were tipped off to Richard Allen. Local rumors vary from his alleged ties to CP Kegan Kline to the recent search of the Wabash River to rumors that his own wife became suspicious and turned him in. An anonymous Reddit user claimed that Delphi police had responded to 8 calls of DV at the Allen household.
Allen has no criminal history, but Carroll County dispatch records show he had one encounter with police in 2015. The sheriff said it was a domestic issue where Allen was supposedly drunk and his wife took him to a Lafayette hospital. No law enforcement action was taken, but deputies were sent to his Delphi home to, quote, keep the peace.
Investigators did search the Allen property in the days before the arrest. A neighbor told the media that investigators dug out the backyard fire pit at the Allen home. What were investigators searching for in the fire pit? Could it have been the infamous blue jacket, brown fanny pack, blue jeans? It's rather common for a murderer to burn bloody clothing. If the clothes were burned, the button, zipper, and fasteners may remain. The killer of Abby and Libby allegedly took items from the girls. It's possible the items were tossed into a fire pit. Did this search lead to the arrest?
Allen's neighbors told us they were shocked by his arrest and recalled seeing police activity, which we're told included digging up a fire pit out back of his home last week.
I saw police cars going down there, a couple of police cars, and I never thought much of it.
People change over the years. And I haven't seen Ricky for a long time.
Richard Allen, a.k.a. Ricky, grew up in this home in Mexico, but neighbors say they haven't seen him much since he moved to Delphi in 2006.
He was all around good, normal, everyday family. Yeah. There was nothing out of the ordinary about him.
Before moving to Delphi, he lived in this home with his wife and daughter, according to neighbors. David Yoder lived across the street, but has known Allen since he was born and grew up with his dad.
Yeah, I mean, I would have never thought living across the road from him, if there was anything. That's where I would have sent my kids to, if there had been any trouble.
But after hearing Allen was arrested and charged with killing Abby Williams and Libby German, he's now questioning if he really knew him.
It's just hard to believe. He's a heck of a nice guy. Always has been.
I honestly just don't know how his parents could not, I don't know how they could not know.
And if he did do it, he deserves to fry.
Investigators will certainly attempt to connect Allen to other crimes. They will interview family, co-workers, and friends. They will search his devices, vehicles, and home extensively. They will trace his travel history and prior addresses. They will enter his DNA into CODIS and VICAP. It's possible that victims or witnesses may recognize Richard Allen and come forward. Allen has exhibited the behaviors of a serial killer. It would be highly unusual for a first homicide to be so heinous and include signatures. Signatures are something that a killer exhibits from habit. It's something that is typically worked up to. Former Carroll County Prosecutor Robert Ives stated that there were at least 3 signatures displayed at the scenes. Unrelated prior search warrants stated that the bodies were moved and staged. It mentioned that items were taken from one or both victims. These are hallmarks of an experienced killer. Abby and Libby were abducted around 2:40 p.m. and allegedly murdered around 3 p.m. in the afternoon. The killer was seen by several witnesses prior to the homicide. Several hikers were in close proximity. It's unusual for someone to take control of and murder 2 people in broad daylight in an area in which they could easily be detected. This is someone who was controlled and deliberate. The aftermath: Allen behaved like a serial killer after the homicides. He is a chameleon. Based on photos taken from his wife's social media page, his appearance drastically changed. It's alleged he stopped drinking alcohol and spent time in a mental institution, although no date has been confirmed. Did Allen show remorse after the homicides? For nearly 6 years, he stood and worked within feet of the suspect's sketch, a sketch of himself. He posed for a photo in front of that same sketch. He processed photos for the victim's funeral. It's likely that he interacted with the families and law enforcement regularly. At any time, he could have stepped forward out of remorse and turned himself in. He didn't. Did he show remorse when Libby's aunt stood before him presenting photos of her recently murdered niece, her heart broken? Or did he instead stand there and remember how those girls looked, like dolls covered in blood, horrifically murdered by his own hands? I won't believe a glimmer of that crime scene didn't flash through his mind. The mind of a cold, callous murderer. Richard Allen is presumed innocent until convicted in a court of law. Authorities conducted an all-day search of the Delphi double murder suspect's prop for his arrest. Non-uniform officers searched Richard Allen's home, which he shared with his wife Kathy, and their property for about 12 hours, according to neighbors. They were definitely snooping around a lot of the fire pit and the backyard, a neighbor said, who described lots of flashlights, lots of pictures, lots of sifting. Richard Allen, 50, was arrested a few weeks ago for the notorious Delphi murders in which 2 Indiana teen girls were killed while hiking near their hometown 5 years ago. Cops believe Richard Allen murdered Libby and Abby on a hiking trail the day before Valentine's Day in 2017. Neighbors told the Post they knew something was going on when they saw police searching the property, but didn't suspect it would be connected to the gruesome killings that have rocked the small Midwest town. Richard Allen's arrest for the murders was the farthest thing from anyone's brain. Everyone's really shocked, a neighbor said. The neighbors couldn't make sense of why the fire pit was being examined at the time, saying, "We never really see them burn things." The couple said Richard Allen and his wife, who hasn't been seen on the property since her husband's arrest, were quiet people who kept to themselves. I don't think anyone was really friends with him. Evidence against Richard Allen, a licensed pharmacy technician at CVS, has been temporarily sealed to avoid jeopardizing the integrity of their investigation. A different neighbor described Allen as a thorough pharmacy technician who went above and beyond at his job. "I swear to you, he seemed like a great person," she said, adding, "He and his wife are very nice. I don't think you'll find anyone who'll say anything mean about him." Another neighbor said she never would have guessed, adding, "He helped me several times at CVS."
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for listening for the first half of the live stream. That was just discussing a little bit of Richard Allen. We already know a lot of it, but I think that that was a good kind of breakdown and a good article to read. So thank you for listening to that. We're going to get into Kegan Kline's transcripts and information on that as well. But first, I kind of want to go through these scene posts that are going around on the internet. I thought they were interesting. And then there was something else I kind of wanted to add in as well, which was sort of discovered last night after I made this video. So I'll just be talking through it. So this pretty much is just posts saying that on March 7th, 2020, a Wikipedia user edited the word suspect to Richard on Wikipedia and then immediately changed it back to suspect the same minute the user had initially changed it to Richard. So that was interesting, I think. And that was sent to me by my moderator, Allison. And then this other one is just a tweet. It looks like it's from a delivery person just sharing their experience of working in Delphi. It says, I used to deliver to the CVS before and after the murders in Delphi. I took this picture on July 25th, 2017. It's a CVS in Delphi. This monster was walking into work every day with his picture on the door every day, let alone he scanned my product when I delivered. So, you know, not only was it hanging around the bar that he's pictured in, it's been said that it was at the CVS, but this has like a picture of it at the CVS. So I thought that was interesting. The other thing that I think needs to be shared, I was going to save it for the next live stream, but I just think that this is just crazy. And let me know if you guys are thinking that there's something strange about it. So Plunder did a video and I watched it last night, and I think she posted it yesterday, and it was about Kathy Allen, Richard's wife. Hi, Alicia. Good to see you. And hello, everyone who has joined us. Thank you so much for being here. If you haven't liked the stream, give me a like. It's much appreciated. And we've got much more to get to as well. So anyways, Plunder put up a video, and it was discussing the Facebook posts that Kathy Allen put up and then recently deleted. So she had screenshot a bunch of her posts that might not even be there anymore. It discussed how they went on vacation in 2018, and Kathy apparently had expressed that they really needed that vacation. And hello, allegedly, with Brittany J. Thank you so much for being here. It's good to see you guys. So people were wondering, why was Richard Allen's wife stating things like they really needed that vacation? And just in that thing that I read through that we just listened to, it says something about how sometimes killers go through cycles. And it makes me wonder if like he went through the murders and then, you know, home life was just erratic or whatever because he's cycling, you know what I mean? So for her to state that they really needed that vacation in 2018 made me very curious on what exactly was making it so important and vital that they take that vacation. And then there's all these rumors that after the murders, he checked himself into a mental institution. So I think that that's very interesting. And I'd like to find more information on him checking himself into a mental institution. Okay, so why exactly is any of this important? Well, going through the Kegan Kline transcripts, like I told you guys, like I have the transcripts, I've been reading through them. A lot of this stuff is just obviously very explicit and very not YouTube friendly pretty much. So I can only talk about certain things here and there and kind of censor it. But what I found that kind of stood out to me was, so all right, how do I explain this? All right, in Plunder's video, she was sharing pictures of Kathy's posts. So March 1st, and I have it on my phone, March 1st, 2018, right? No, 2019. So 2 years after the murders, right? She posted a fundraiser. And the Facebook fundraiser was for Sandy Hook victims. It was a Sandy Hook fundraiser, right? And I was listening to this Plunder video and I just heard her, I was like editing and I'm hearing it in the background, which is what I do a lot of the times. And I listen to all these other channels too. So hi, allegedly. It's good to see you. Yeah, I was listening to you on Brittany's channel last night while I was editing and Plunder and all this stuff. And I'm like, this is strange. So she shared that Sandy Hook fundraiser on her Facebook. And, you know, that to anybody would be like, okay, what is your point? Well, it's just strange because I don't know, maybe I'm just looking into it, but in Kegan Kline's transcripts, and I have it like redacted because it's just very explicit. It's got things, obviously, I have to beep out, I guess. During the transcripts, he's being asked questions about his online searches, and the detective pulls up what they have of Kegan Kline's forensic digital forensic information, I guess. Sorry. And he is asking Kegan Kline about his searches. And, it lists off the searches, stuff that I can't say, obviously. I'll beep them out. Little teen, beep, beep. Preteen, beep, beep, beep. It's just these explicit searches that Kegan Kline had on his phone. And in the mix of that, there was photos of Sandy Hook bodies. I'm sorry, it sounds awful, right? So on Kegan Kline's phone data and during the transcripts, they're asking him about his searches. And they start listing off the searches. And then the detective lists off the Sandy Hook thing and then says, why is Sandy Hook in there? So I'm hearing Plunder talk about how Kathy put up a fundraiser for Sandy Hook victims. And all of a sudden this like light bulb goes off in my head. And I'm like, wait, what? So I go through the transcripts and I see the Sandy Hook stuff being searched on Kegan Kline's phone. And it's just, I don't know. I don't know if there's a connection there. Like, because here's the thing. Kegan Kline is stating that more than himself had access to that login, the Anthony Shots login that was grooming these children, these girls, these teens, young girls. So not only do we have to keep in mind that there's more than one person logging in, probably, those searches might not all have been Kegan Kline. You know what I mean? So while those searches seem like the same person because of the explicit material they're searching, the Sandy Hook bodies mixed in the mix is just kind of like, okay, what the heck is this doing in these types of searches, And then people start, speculating about a snuff film possibly. And, that's why the Sandy Hook stuff is in there. And that theory comes from Gray Hughes. Which makes a lot of sense because a lot of people kind of have this snuff film theory anyways. So what I'm saying is 2 years later, his wife is sharing a fundraiser for Sandy Hook victims. And I just think that is strange, coincidental. Is it connected? Is it not connected? People have theorized that it was possibly his wife that turned him in. Other people have theorized that Kegan Kline is turning on people. But it's just, I don't know, is it just a coincidence, that she wants to raise money for the Sandy Hook victims? She shares the fundraiser on her Facebook. And then we look at the Kegan Kline searches on his phone and Sandy Hook bodies were mixed in there. So I don't know, guys. I thought that was alarming, interesting, coincidental. You guys let me know your thoughts on it. I'm already seeing chat pretty much saying I don't believe in coincidences, but guys, that's just weird. Were there things that Richard Allen's wife was knowing about, or maybe she stumbled on, because if they're pulling up these searches and using them against Kegan Kline in the interview, were these similar searches on other devices that maybe Richard Allen's wife stumbled on or something? You know what I mean? I just feel like, why is she sharing? I don't know, guys. I just want to leave that there and continue on. So thank you guys for being here, for listening. I want to continue the live stream, which I have more pre-recorded stuff involving Kegan Kline and the transcript. So we'll listen to that. And then I just want to share a court TV segment that I think will bring everything together too. And the court TV segment was put out before the Monday morning press conference. So it's just kind of like background information. Anyways, thank you guys for being here. And again, Richard Allen has pled not guilty to his charges on the double homicides. And we don't have any information about, the motive, the means, the opportunity. They are withholding information about the probable cause aspect in the affidavit. Everything is sealed. So we are waiting on a lot of information. So thank you guys for being here again. Oh yeah, I forgot this part. Hold on. I forgot that I put that up there. 1 second, guys. So on Facebook, there's obviously private Facebook groups that discuss the case. I kind of redacted the group name because some groups like to stay, under the radar, even though they're true crime related. No, I've got a lot to go through, allegedly. Just the Richard Allen part is over. I'm going to continue on with Kegan Kline stuff. So this Richard Allen stuff, I want to just go through real quick. So you guys know that when you have a Facebook account, if you delete that account, everything that you've commented anywhere and everywhere is now deleted. So it'll show people tagging you and responding to you, but your comment is no longer there anymore. So in this Delphi Case group, Facebook group, there were people posting about the sketches, it looks like. And somebody wrote, these posts are getting obnoxious. Not every man with similar clothing items is the Delphi Bridge guy. And somebody responded to them. Like, you literally think a picture that comes up on the first page when you Google Delphi Bridge is going to coincidentally have the killer in it and wearing the same things. And then I'm assuming Richard Allen Hill commented, but since he deleted his Facebook, it's not there. But the person who tagged him in response, theirs is there with his name. So it says, Richard Allen, if only being a detective was as easy as people act like it is. Be right back. Going to Google image of John Benet's house to see if I can see the killer standing outside. So it appears, even though we don't see exactly what Richard Allen Hill is saying, it appears that we can assume that he was monitoring these Facebook groups, which theorize and do everything that we're doing right now virtually through YouTube. That's what, these groups do. So, it goes on and on. He must have commented again, which we can't see, but they respond back to him. Rick Allen Hill, exactly. And he's probably not walking around in the same outfit he committed a double murder in. So, we don't know the whole context of this conversation because Rick Allen Hill, and we know that his wife calls him Ricky, and that neighbor who used to live in that area that he grew up in called him Ricky. So that, is interesting. I just wanted to look and share that with you guys as well. So it appears that he was in these groups, spinning the narrative, monitoring the narrative, all that, you know what I mean? And we already knew that early on in the investigation, he had come forward as a witness, like pretty much saying like, I was in the area, but it's not me type of talk. Like, we have news clips and all that pretty much saying that, yeah, he did come forward as a witness early on and was passed over. And he also participated in the searches as well when they were missing. So they were only missing for a day. So he must have shot right up and been like, let me help, and for people, from everything we know about them, like they kind of like weren't really like they socialized when they played pool at that local bar, but it didn't really seem like they had many friends in town. So it's very interesting to think about knowing that about him. And then the fact that he decided to volunteer and help search, it's like, it's crazy. So anyways, let's get into the Kegan Kline aspect of everything. Where does he fit in? People theorize that, he is given information to law enforcement that is pushing the investigation further along. He's had a lot of his charges dropped, and his charges are heinous. They're crimes against children. So for them to go to the extent of dropping certain charges for this Kegan Kline guy, it's very significant information, I'm assuming. So, there was a point where looking through prison information and prison records, you see that he was in a county jail, Kegan Kline, and then stuff's going on. It seems he gets transferred out of that jail and is put into Indiana state custody. So, for a prisoner to kind of be moved around, people have just been speculating like, why, like what's going on? People have been watching this case so closely the last almost 6 years. So, it's been speculated that he's been moved around and working with state police now. They did that search on that Wabash River. People speculated maybe Kegan Kline gave them a tip of like a possible device there or murder weapon. It's just all been kind of working in the scenes behind us. So it's just very interesting. Alrighty, so let's continue on. And thank you guys for being here. I really appreciate it. If you haven't subscribed or liked the stream, if you could do so, that's all I really ask. There are links if you wanted to donate to the channel, but they are in the description box. So just give me a like. That's really all I'm asking. And anything else donated is obviously appreciated.
Kegan Kline, 28, was publicly linked to the case last December when it emerged that he had communicated with 14-year-old Libby via a fake Instagram account the morning she and 13-year-old Abby went missing from their walk on the Monon High Bridge Trail. He was already in prison facing a slew of child-related charges, but had been free at the time of the February 2017 killings. Today, an investigation has revealed that in recent months, Kline has been cooperating with Indiana State Police, perhaps in a bid to barter a plea deal in his own case or to lessen any charges he may yet face in connection to theirs. CVS pharmacist and Delphi local Richard Allen was arrested and charged with a double homicide last month, with officers insisting that the case was still active and leaving the door open for others to be charged. 6 days later, Miami County's prosecutor filed a motion asking the courts to dismiss 5 of the 30 charges for which Kline is due to stand trial in January. The details of what led police to Allen's door just 5 miles from where the girls went missing remain under court seal. An unusual situation and one that will be reviewed in a public hearing November 22nd. One of the reasons for this seal may be that the probable cause affidavit names one or more suspects who have yet to be charged. Now court documents obtained strongly suggest Kline's involvement. A previously sealed court order filed on August 19, 2022 confirms that Kline, who is being held in Miami County Jail, was temporarily released into custody of Indiana State Police the day that officers began a 5-week search on the Wabash River. Meanwhile, a close study of the transcript of Kline's 2020 police interview has revealed that law enforcement never suspected Kline of being the bridge guy, but were convinced that he was protecting the killer's identity. In fact, the transcript shows that when Kline denied knowing who killed the girls, a polygraph test found he was lying. Material collected from multiple devices owned by Kline and seized by police in February 2020 sparked one of the largest child P investigations in Indiana state history. In August 2020, police conducted one of many videotaped interviews. Investigators accused him of grooming multiple underage girls, some as young as 7, using fake social media accounts and usernames across platforms including Snapchat, KIK, Instagram, and MeetMe. Chillingly, while the girls believed they were conversing with teenage girl Emily Ann or hunky actor and model Anthony Schatz, they were in fact exchanging intimate details and pictures with Kegan Kline, who cops alleged not only gratified himself, but acted as a conduit for other pedos to interact with the girls whom he groomed. By the time Kline sat down for August 2020 interview, he had already flunked a polygraph test during which he had been asked if he knew who the Delphi killer was. The transcripts show a line of questions to Kline. Key to their line of questions was the certainty that at least one other user had access to Kline's fake accounts and therefore a direct line to the girls. Kline estimated he had communicated with more than 200, one of them being Libby. Kline had lied to detectives in early interviews, claiming to have only messaged Libby on one occasion for a couple of hours, and stating that he had never exchanged photos with her. In August, officers confronted him with the fact that they knew that Anthony Schatz had messaged with Libby across several weeks, offering to buy her gifts and sending pictures of himself, and what he claimed was his Ferrari. The detective pulled out specific messages in a bid to jog Kline's memory, including one where he asked, "Is it bad that I'm super into you?" According to the detective, Schatz had messaged with Libby during the sleepover she had with Abby, ahead of their final day. In fact, he was one of the last people she communicated with on the morning she and her friend went missing. Now investigators told Kline they did not believe that he was the only one who messaged Libby under the guise of Schatz. According to the detective in the transcripts, on February 13th, 8 o'clock in the morning, 2 separate devices, log in, log out, log in, log out, all within minutes of each other, to the same Anthony Schatz Snapchat account. Detective then drew Kline's attention to subsequent messages exchanged between the Anthony Schatz account and a friend of Libby's. The conversation began with the friend asking Schatz if he had heard about Libby and Abby. Schatz responded, "OMG, what happened?" Then stated, "Yeah, we were supposed to meet, but she never showed up." Kline reacted violently to this information, claiming that he had never sent any such message, describing this as a effing lie, accusing the detective of implying he murdered the girls. Detective responded, "I can honestly sit here and I'm telling you, I do not believe that you killed Libby or Abby, but you need to tell me who was logging into these accounts." Across the course of the interview, the detective asked Kline who had access to Anthony Schatz's accounts dozens of times, and Kline repeatedly claimed not to remember details, not to know, or that he was the only one with the access. The detective drilled down, "So you're the one that talked to her all weekend, and you're one of the last people to talk to her before she was murdered? That's what you're telling me. So you were trying to get nude images from Liberty?" Kline responded that he was trying to do that with all the girls he messaged. Detective bit back, "The other ones are not dead. She's dead." It is quickly apparent that neither the detective nor the other deputy believed Kline's assertions that he sent all the message attributed to the Schatz account across the last week of Libby's life. Instead, they theorized that he had established the persona to groom her and then allow another man to enter the scene. The detective stated, "So now we're worried about grooming. We have a guy that has troves of child pee on his devices. We have Libby being groomed, and unfortunately she was completely enthralled with Anthony Schatz, like she is completely in love with Anthony Schatz." The detective pointed out that when Kline claimed to have stopped messaging with Libby 2 weeks before her death, his polygraph test shows he was being truthful. He said, "The day you had your polygraph, you were steadfast, you never came off. I never spoke to Libby beyond February 1st or 2nd. Look, we know you spoke to her the day she was murdered. You said, absolutely not, I blocked her. She was annoying me after the 1st or 2nd, right? But we have these grooming pictures. We have the messages with my daddy references. Regardless of what you say, there are 2 different authors. They're not you. The phrasing's different. It changes. It's not the same person." Investigators also noted that all of Kline's multiple devices had their histories intact when they were seized, except for the one containing Libby's conversations with Schatz. Detective laid it out. So during the time frame where this grooming would have been built up to a meeting, the history is gone. It's wiped from your phone. So now it all starts to stack. The complexity of your Anthony Schatz persona, the cars, the influence of Lamborghinis, Ferraris. It's not you. It's not your idea. You and I both know it's not your idea, the complexity of it, okay? It's not just you. Under mounting pressure, Kline told officers, "I swear I don't know anything." To which the detective responded, "Yes, you do, man." Deputy Clinton interjected, I can't wrap my head around why you're willing to put all of this on you. Why are you protecting somebody else?" Clearly rattled, Kline asked, "You think I know who killed them?" Detective replied, "Absolutely." He continued, "I just don't understand why you're protecting the person. Was it as simply as that Libby just said, 'Hey, I'm going to the high bridge,' and you told somebody?" Ultimately, the interview ended with Kline maintaining that he didn't know anything about what happened to the girls. Before leaving the room, the detective told Kline, "You need to sit here and you need to start remembering more because this is important."
Okay, so that was a little bit more information on the transcripts. Like I said, I have them. I'm reading through them. I'll pull out interesting points just like that one. And then in my last live stream, there was more reading of the transcripts also. So let me just switch my screen up and we will play that court TV segment. Again, this was released before they did that Monday press conference, but after they said that they had arrested someone. So it's just going to give us a little bit of a recap. We can just watch together and I can talk to you guys a little bit more. I like to just play my pre-recorded stuff like all the way through instead of pausing it and kind of interacting with you guys. But I do read all your stuff and I'm interacting with you guys in the chat. But for the court TV thing, it's I think I can pause it and just kind of talk to you guys through it too. So it's longer. We're going to get through it, but here we go. And thank you all for being here again.
Today is the day. That's what people are saying about the Delphi murder mystery. Today's the day that mystery may have been solved. On February 13th, 2017, Libby German and her friend Abby Williams went hiking.
And actually, let me just kind of elaborate a little bit more on what I gathered from that Kegan Kline transcript. It was basically, you know, what I pulled out of it is he passed on his polygraph when they asked if he, like, pretty much he said that he blocked Libby. And, you know, with more than one person accessing the accounts, it might not have been Kegan Kline who spoke with Libby the day of the bridge meetup. So it seemed like, from my understanding, and you guys let me know, he passed the polygraph when the question was asked, you know, did he speak with Libby within the last like few days of her death? And then he failed the question on his polygraph when they asked him if he knew who Bridge Guy was or who killed the girls, pretty much. So that is significant in my mind, even though they're not admissible in court. I think that polygraphs are a good tool, and I just like knowing the questions that he passed and failed on. So yeah, I am so ready to get justice for those girls too, CDT. And good morning, Mel Mac. It's good to see you. And yep, and everyone else who has joined us. Keith, it's good to see you. Seagate. So let's just watch this. Good morning, Allison. Allison, I shared my little thing that I found and pieced together the thing that I told you I was going to share this morning. So I guess I'll just retell you what it was, because I know that I kind of left you on the edge of your seat about it. There was a post that Kathy Allen, Richard's wife, put up in 2019 of her sharing a fundraiser for Sandy Hook families and victims. And there's mention of internet searches involving, I hate even saying this, but somebody was searching, you know, the crime scene of Sandy Hook, you know, with the children. So I've kind of connected, you know, why were they asking Kegan Kline about those searches, which obviously had explicit child material also, but mixed in there, it was Sandy Hook bodies. So, you know, that was in the internet search for Kegan Kline's accounts for Anthony Schatz, etc. And then his wife, 2 years after the murder, Richard Allen's wife, shares on Facebook a fundraiser for Sandy Hook victims. So I just thought that that was a weird little connection.
The two teenagers were good friends and had the day off from.
I'm over here dancing.
Unseasonably warm. But when Libby and Abby did not show up when they were supposed to get picked up, their families began to worry. That worry turned to horror when the bodies of these two girls were found, both victims of murder. Then, over the course of the next 5+ years, there were no answers, no arrests, just a series of disjointed clues, like two sketches that looked nothing alike. A video of the suspected killer and a short audio recording of his voice. Then things got even stranger when police said they were looking for anyone connected to an Anthony Schatz social media account, which was not connected to the male model in the photos.
What do you guys think this male model thinks about like his image being used for this case? Like, I feel bad for him. And good morning, Gregory. Hello, it's good to see you. And Johnny, good to see you. And Graz, thank you for being here.
Then the man behind that account was arrested for child pornography. But still, no arrests for the double murder until now. Today is the day, and tonight we try to make sense of the arrest and prepare for what investigators will reveal Monday morning when they make their official announcement.
I'm Vinny Politan. Thank you for joining us. Wow. Today's the day. It's hard to believe. It's hard to believe. Nothing official yet, but everything is pointing in that direction. So let's take a moment.
Okay, let me just answer this question from chat. Floyd asked, so who was Googling Sandy Hook bodies? In the transcripts for Kegan Kline, they presented Kegan Kline his history on the devices that they got warrants for and that they pulled forensic data from, digital forensics. And in his search history, which obviously had explicit material in it relating to teens, there was randomly a search for Sandy Hook bodies. So it was either Kegan Kline did that, or, you know, somebody else who had access to the accounts or whatever was searching that. Oh, wow. ATS News. Gray found something interesting too. Yeah, I saw the tie-dye. The tie-dye shirt Richard's daughter was wearing was in memory of Abby and Libby shirt that their family sold. How crazy is that? Wow. So the families made shirts that were tie-dyes, and it had, like, you know, in memory of, et cetera, et cetera. And Richard Allen's daughter owned one. I saw that Gray was talking about that, and that is, you know, it's just another element. It's just like he was like rubbing it in our faces.
And get some perspective on this. And let's begin with what happened here. This was an awful tragedy. But think about it this way, okay? How many times did you, as a teenager, even a young teenager, just go somewhere with your friends? Or how about your children? How many times did you know that, hey, my son, my daughter, his friend, her friend, their friends are going somewhere. They're going to the movies. They're going on a hike. They're going to the beach. And you can't be there 24/7 for your kids. They grow up. They grow up, and they have to grow up. And they should be able to grow up. All they were doing was going for a hike. In Delphi, Indiana, small town. Should have been a nothing day, right? A day off from school, a day with your friend, and then it's over. But everything was over because we know what happened. Now, during the course of these 5+ years, we've seen so many different clues, but it seemed like we knew who the killer was. And it begins with the sketches. I mean, here he is. Here he is in the sketches. I mean, 2 sketches. They don't look alike, but my understanding is when you release a sketch, it's because it's based upon a description of someone who saw the person that you're looking for. And maybe different people can give different descriptions, etc. But we got a sketch. There he is. Well, we also had a video. Here he is again. This is the guy for 5 years, more than 5 years. We've had this evidence, and then we've had all the stories and the people that were under suspicion through the years. And now finally tonight, we haven't confirmed the name, haven't confirmed exactly who it is, but all indications are the person who was purportedly arrested was under the radar, not someone we had necessarily been talking about. We'll see. We'll see. We're going to find out a lot more on Monday. But let's take a look at what we know tonight. This is from our affiliate, WRTV, out there in Indianapolis. The name of the arrestee has not been confirmed, but sources say the individual appeared in court Friday morning.
And just to reiterate, this is an old segment, so this was before that Monday press conference.
The Indiana State Police plans to provide an update on Monday. And this is incredibly consistent with the way this entire case has been handled by investigators, holding all the information very close, releasing little bits and pieces here and there. And even now, when we've had an arrest, according to those sources, we still don't have the confirmation of the information. And there's perhaps a lot of reasons for that, and we'll find out. But we have some more information tonight. Rachel Wilkerson from WRTV in Indianapolis has more for us tonight.
Sources tell WRTV that a man has been arrested here in Carroll County. I'm told the sheriff will not be back into town until Monday. That's when the sheriff's office, Indiana State Police, and multiple agencies will be providing an update in the case that's grabbed international attention. The family tells WRTV it's hopeful. On social media, a sister said, quote, "Just know how grateful I am for all of you." She goes on to say no comments for now. The family will say more during Monday's press conference. Families of 13-year-old Abby Williams and 14-year-old Libby German haven't given up. On February 13th, 2017, the girls went for a walk in the woods near the Monon High Bridge. They were never seen alive again. On Valentine's Day of 2017, their bodies were found less than a mile from where they were dropped off the day before. What happened between the time they were dropped off and when their bodies were found has remained a mystery for years. We're hoping to get clarity about this on Monday. Indiana State Police, the lead agency on the case, says more than 50,000 tips have been called in or emailed during the past 5 years. Detectives have interviewed hundreds of people as well. This case has captivated the world, and those close to home say the girls haven't been forgotten.
We've never forgotten them. Everybody's going to keep them in their minds forever. The park will show that as it continues to grow. And we just hope when the case ends that, nobody will ever forget the two.
Indiana State Police say the case has never gone cold because investigators haven't given up. On Monday, the update will be at 10 a.m. and WRTV will be carrying this live for you at the Delphi United Methodist Church. Reporting in Delphi, I'm Rachel Wilkerson, WRTV.
This is such an important development, and obviously nothing brings back Abby and Libby. But for that family, think about where they are and where they've been in the last 5+ years. An unthinkable loss, but then no answers and no justice. Well, it appears that tonight there is an answer. Monday we'll find out a lot more about that. Then we get on the road to justice, which is, our system, the arraignment, the pretrial motions and hearings, and then a trial. And we'll see how it all unfolds. But right now, let's bring in our guests. Joining me tonight in Los Angeles, California, retired FBI Special Agent Bobby Chacon. In Charleston, South Carolina, host of The Interview Room with Chris McDonough. Chris McDonough is with us. And from Indianapolis, Indiana.
Did you guys see this one with Chris McDonough on it? I haven't watched. I'm watching it for the first time with you guys, but I'm excited to hear what he has to say. And Natalie asked, do you think Ron Logan was a part of this crime? Why or why not? I think for me personally, because I've known about this case through the headlines and been watching it like vicariously through people. So I haven't like dug as deep until right now. But I would say where I am right now in my research, I'm like undecided on where he comes in. So that's where I'm at. And I'm sure chat will let us know their thoughts on him as well.
And a host of the Murder Sheet podcast, Anya Kane and Kevin Greenlee. Thank you, everyone, for coming on tonight. Short notice, all this stuff. Wow, it just started unraveling this afternoon. Anya, Kevin, I want to start with you. You're there in Indiana. Your thoughts tonight. I want to get initial thoughts from everyone about where we are in light of these developments tonight.
Absolutely. Yeah, we've been on the ground in Delphi all day, basically trying to talk to as many people as possible to get a sense of what is going on. And I don't know if we've nailed down most of any of the important details yet, but I mean, we can say that this is a huge development. The fact that police are basically coming out and saying that an arrest related to Delphi has been made and answers, I mean, for us, that means that answers could be forthcoming, which is so important for the families, the people who love these girls, and the community that has been so negatively affected by this horrible thing happening. So we're hopeful that this is a good sign that somebody has possibly been arrested and may see, some sort of justice eventually.
Chris McDonough, your thoughts tonight, initial reaction to this news today. I mean, big news today.
Yeah, Vinny, I think this is fantastic for the family. And I think the investigators who've, just stuck to it till it's stuck to them, in order to get to the place where they've put some bracelets on somebody today, or at least, at this point, we have indications that they have a target and he's appeared in court. It's going to be an interesting press conference come Monday for sure, and to see what they unfold.
Bobby Chacon, your initial thoughts tonight.
I wasn't surprised. I mean, I knew these guys were still working it. They were doggedly going at this thing. Every couple of years we've had, press conferences or announcements on this case that clearly indicated they were still working at it. They were still doing search warrants. They were still turning every stone over they could in this case. So I was confident that they were still really going hard at this case, even though we weren't getting a lot of information. And Vinny, you and I have talked a lot about that. When I was an investigator on that side of the fence for 30 years, I didn't want a lot of my information out there in the press unless it benefited the investigation. And so I didn't mind that we weren't getting a whole lot of information, because in between those announcements, I knew that those investigators were going home with this case every night. They were living this thing. They were doggedly going at it. And eventually I was confident that they'd have some success.
I want to go back to another tweet from Kelsey German, Libby's sister. This is what she wrote today. Just know how grateful I am for all of you. No comments for now. Any questions, please refer to Carroll County Prosecutor's Office. There's tentatively a press conference Monday, 10 a.m. We will say more then. This was the line that really stuck with me. Today is the day. Today is the day. Nothing confirmed at this time. Anya and Kevin, Murder Sheet podcast. What did you learn today about the delay? I mean, we've covered a lot of cases. Many times when there's an arrest and there's an appearance in court, we kind of know everything at that point, and people are usually in the courtroom when all this happens. Any word as to why everything sort of unfolded under the radar?
Well, we do things a little bit differently in Indiana sometimes, and certainly things happen differently with this case. If you look back to the famous.
So those are the people that have sort of followed this case through, like when they uncovered the information a few months ago. But Natalie said, I think only time will prove Logan's involvement, but I personally think the video of Bridge Guy was Logan, and he had some intel about what was going on. I mean, the bodies were found on his property. I'd seen somebody in chat said that Logan was around the bodies around 8 p.m. Like I said, I'm just now deep diving into this case. I've skimmed it and known about it, but these details are all new to me. So thank you so much for sharing everything in chat for those who have been following this for a very long time. Bridge Guy was obviously Richard Allen. The voice confirms it to me. And, I haven't had a chance to really dig deep into the voice comparison. But what I do remember is in my last live stream that I did on this case and deep dive, they had stated that law enforcement said that Logan's voice wasn't inconclusive to Bridge Guy. So they're not saying that it was like a match, but they're saying that it wasn't not a match. Like it was kind of like it could be. Am I understanding that right, guys?
This New Direction press conference we had back in 2019 in regards to this case. That press conference was announced on Friday, and it wasn't held until the following Monday. I think part of that is just to give, quite frankly, an opportunity for the national press to get to town to cover it, because this case really has attracted an unprecedented amount of interest all over the world.
And then in terms of today's, alleged court hearing, we heard some things that maybe there was some sort of hearing this morning, but when we went to the courthouse, they were a little less than cooperative about getting us that information, even though it is, as far as we understand, a public record. So we've had a hard time, and we know that other members of the state have had a hard time tracking that down. So we're kind of still looking and still trying to figure out what exactly is going on with that.
I mean, that's like standard operating procedure. Like the court records are public records. Someone gets arrested and charged, perhaps with murder, you kind of find out about it. Is there any, what are your thoughts, Chris, as to why?
Before we get to Chris's thoughts, and I love his little shirt with his emblem there. Do you guys think that they're just keeping this affidavit sealed and under wraps because people's names are in it that, are vital to the investigation? Like, for example, maybe it'll say like Kegan Kline told us that Richard Allen and then X, Y, and Z are involved or something like that. You know what I mean? I'm just curious if maybe it's obvious why they're keeping it under wraps, because names and all that involved.
So secretive, even at this point, if in fact they've made an arrest and someone appeared in the courtroom.
Yeah, Vinny, I think what's going on here, just like any high profile situation such as this, is, they're going to try to keep close to the vest. They're all the like what we call pre-incident indicators, right? Any kind of forensics evidence that's going to connect them, maybe through, devices or anything like that. And then, they have to measure against, the victim risk continuum. The subject involved here for these two little girls was very comfortable with that area, as we know. I mean, you guys have been talking about this for quite some time. So if this guy has any geographical profiling connection to that region, i.e. close to it or close to where the contact site was, then they're going to keep that stuff very, very close. And with some of the other individuals that popped up, I'm not going to be surprised if there's going to be other information on the other side of, the forensics aspect that's going to connect other individuals that connected to this guy.
And yeah, yep, makes a good comment. My issue with chasing Ron Logan is they didn't find any CP on his electronics, nothing belonging to A&L trophies, and he was at the dump that day, and law enforcement confirmed he asked him a friend to lie. So yeah, he did. He asked, that whole alibi lie has really screwed him over though. You know what I mean? But I definitely see why people don't really lean towards Logan's involvement. But there are a lot of people who think possibly he knew more. For my thing, it's like, why would he let the bodies be on his property if he was involved? You know what I mean? That's sort of just where my head goes to. Like, that would just be so idiotic. But again, this is only my second video on this. I am deep diving into this. I have the transcripts with Kegan Kline, and like all the other cases, I bring it to you guys, with my best ability with the research. So we're all going through this together, and you guys, some of you have been on this case longer than me, so please, if you're watching this on replay or anything, just let me know your thoughts and fill me in on some facts. And honestly, if you can link articles, I know that sometimes in comment sections you can't link links, but if you give the name of the article or whatever, like just for me to source, that could help out a lot too. So thank you all. And Petunia, thank you so much for becoming a member. I really appreciate that. And I'm happy to have you here. And I always like all your insight and comments. So thank you.
Bobby, how about that moment where, as an investigator, you have an answer for a family? Give us an indication of what that moment is like. First, when you figure it out that, yeah, we've got the answer. And then when you're able to let the family know about it.
And yeah, allegedly said the lie in reference to Logan is the thing that bothers me. He must have been doing something very bad to lie and not give answers. And then other people have said, well, he didn't have a license, and, they excuse it or try to explain it further. But it's like, it like you said, it's just not a good look. It's just kind of like, cringe,
Well, you're exactly right. There are two steps to the process. The first step is kind of a continuum. You think you have enough, the prosecutors don't. You try to get enough, you get enough to where the prosecutors say, okay, we're comfortable moving forward. And then there's the decision on this part of the prosecution. Do we go by an information, a complaint, an indictment? And those are strategic decisions. And, because you always want to say, when can we let the family know? When are you comfortable as a prosecutor that we can go? Because you never know when you let the family know where that information is going to go. They're not obligated to keep it a secret. So you have to, it's all very strategic. There's a lot of conversations. I'm sure this was talked about for days, if not weeks, about how to carry this out, how to charge him, what instrument we're going to use to charge him, why we're going to use that particular instrument. And it seems like the family, especially through Kelsey's social media presence, she's done a fantastic job at her moderation and her maturity in being present on social media for her sister. It seems like they've kept the family apprised of major steps in the investigation. The family hasn't had any complaints. So I think that they've kind of worked with the family. But as an investigator, it's always, you're almost to the mountaintop. The conviction, of course, is the mountaintop. But there's a major hurdle to get over when you can actually charge someone and you can tell the family, we're confident we're going to get a conviction. And that's a really good day. I mean, it's somewhat bittersweet because, it's never going to be occasion to celebrate because these two young people are gone forever. But it is what you're, it is what you strive for. That's the day. Like you said, today is the day. This is the day when you lock somebody up and you charge them with, whatever they've been charged with. That's the goal. And to let the family know, your relationship with the family over these years has been close, it seems. And it's a good day. It's a good day.
All right, our guests are staying with us the whole hour. We're going to start going through some of the other people who have been looked at that have been part of this investigation, been part of the leads in this investigation, including that Anthony Schatz social media account and the man behind it, Kegan Kline. Like, could there be a connection between him and these developments? We'll talk about that. Plus, coming up next hour.
In Santa Fe, New Mexico, the investigation into the shooting
on social media while investigating the murders of Abigail Williams and Liberty German, detectives with and the Indiana State Police have uncovered an online profile named Anthony Schatz. This profile was being used from 2016 to 2017 on social media applications, including but not limited to Snapchat and Instagram. The fictitious Anthony Schatz profile used images of a known male model and portrayed himself as being extremely wealthy and owning numerous sports cars. The creator of the fictitious profile used this information while communicating with juvenile females to solicit nude images, obtain their address, and attempt to meet with them. Detectives are seeking information about the person who created the Anthony Schatz profile. Investigators would like any individual who communicated, met, or attempted to meet the Anthony Schatz profile to contact law enforcement.
This was one of the huge developments and twists in the Delphi case, in the search for Abby and Libby's murder. They said it was all connected to that investigation, this social media profile. The male model you see, completely innocent, had nothing to do with it. They just used his image to attract young girls. Now, eventually, though, they tracked down someone who they told us was responsible for all of this, Kegan Kline, who's then been charged. There he is, looks nothing like the male model, right? Charged with child porn crimes. And apparently, Libby German was communicating with Kegan Kline. And we're putting this all together. We're like, are you kidding me? So everyone, of course, was looking at him, but then he wasn't arrested for the murder. But is he somehow connected? What's going on here? Let's bring back in our guest, Bobby Chacon, retired FBI, Chris McDonough, host of the Interview Room with Chris McDonough, Anya Kane and Kevin Greenlee, host of the Murder Sheet podcast. All right, Anya, Kevin, tell me about Kegan Kline, the latest on him. I know we were speaking last week about it. Could there be any connection between what's happening today and what's been happening with him?
Yeah, it's a terrific question. We've been trying to look into, speaking with sources or tracking down possible connections between either Kegan Kline and the current person that's been arrested, or the current person that's been arrested with, any other figure that has arisen in the case.
Okay, let me just, I'm looking at chat and good comments. And hello, Tony, it's good to see you. Catherine says, I feel bad for his wife. He sounds like a psychopath. Yeah, and we went through a little bit of the dynamic between husband and wife earlier in the stream. And by the way, they've been married since they were both 19. And somebody said that Richard Allen came forward as a witness. So I think Allen was bridge guy and came forward as a witness, but I really want to know when. I do too. And if he participated in the search groups, I'm wondering if that was when he came forward, like not kill two birds with one stone. Like, I was here on this day. It wasn't me, but let me help you guys search, like when exactly did he come forward as a witness? And hello, Melinda. It's good to see you and everyone else who has joined us. Thank you all for being here. Hi, Marilyn. And please give a like if you haven't. That's all I ask. And yeah, you didn't, Elizabeth Diane said, wow, I didn't know Richard Allen came forward as a witness. Yeah, it's been and that's what I was saying to one of my mods. I was like, why am I only seeing this mentioned like here and there, like about him coming forward as a witness? They haven't really done like many like news segments on it. It's just kind of been something that everyone knows. I think they had Richard in their sights for a long time, just didn't have anything to link him. Definitely could be.
Case in the past. So far, we've turned up a blank. So we're not hearing any connections, and we don't know if that means that there are none, or perhaps law enforcement is sort of being a bit reluctant to necessarily reveal that at this point.
But there was,
as far as we know.
But there was, the morning that they disappeared, was there any communication between the Anthony Schatz, which Kegan Kline is associated with, and Libby or Abby?
So from our understanding of the police transcript of the interview that occurred in August 2020 between Kegan and the police, they basically indicate that yes, they were in communication on the day of the murders, that Libby's account and the Anthony Shots account were communicating.
So, and remember, we talked about the Kegan Kline transcripts, and they spoke about his polygraph and what questions he passed his polygraph on and what he failed on. So whoever was conversing with these girls that morning, in my opinion, wasn't Anthony Shots. Like, even though the polygraph is, not admissible in court, it seems like he passed the question, like, were you speaking to her on the day she went missing? And then the one that he failed on was, do you know who killed these girls? And then that's when Kegan Kline failed. So people are saying that he came forward as a witness on the first day. So that was the 14th, which would explain, maybe that's when he volunteered to help search, because the girls were found the following day around noon, not missing that long at all. And yeah, that's a good question, David. How did the killer get out of those woods covered in blood? Because we do know that another document indicated that FBI knew for a fact, well, it's kind of obvious by the crime scene that whoever killed them would obviously have been covered in blood by the manner in which everything looked. So it's crazy.
That was sort of looked as a strong link between him and the crime. But this current person could have nothing to do with him. And, you always have to leave open the possibility that something could turn out to be a red herring, even if it seems very important at the time. So,
yeah, Gregory said, I wonder if Richard Allen had gone to the staging or posing area the day before and left a change of clothes. I mean, it sounds very premeditated by everything that I've seen so far on like the crime scene and the crime. So that is definitely a possibility, have it hidden behind like a tree or something. Or maybe, I'm just speaking out loud. Maybe Logan had something there for him. I'm obviously at first, my initial gut instinct is to think it would be very stupid for Ron Logan to, have them on the property and be involved. But yeah. Oh, am I speaking loud, CK? I'm sorry.
I think at this point, we're just trying to gather news and figure out, is there a connection? What are police thinking at this point?
Yeah. And, Bobby Chacon, I say this a lot. I don't believe in coincidences, right? But so, there's a couple of possible scenarios, right? Kegan Kline is somehow connected to this individual or what happened, or not connected. If he's not connected, that means that Libby and Abby had some interaction with a guy who was trying to lure young girls into child pornography and pictures. And at the same time, on the same day, a crime of opportunity takes place? Or I'm wondering, what do you think here, Bobby? What are the odds?
Yeah, exactly. And this could be, as Anya said, this could be a red herring. And it is one of those times as an investigator, you just shake your head because you've kind of gone down this road and everything looks good. Sexual predator, has contact with the victims, and then if it turns out, I don't know, we don't know yet. But if it turns out there is no connection, you're right. It's one of those things where investigators shake their head and like, what are the odds? We just spent all this time and effort. They did search warrants in the river near Kline's home. They had search warrants and they interviewed him. Obviously, they spent, investigative resources looking at this guy hard. And if it turns out he had nothing to do with it and no connection to the actual person under arrest, then you just shake your head. It's just one of those really bad coincidences that drained investigative resources away from the case that didn't need to be. But that's one of those things where you have to go down every investigative avenue. You have to turn over every stone. These happen to look like good stones. These happen to look like really good investigative leads. And so it's yet to be determined, and we haven't found out yet. I'm sure we will very shortly, whether or not that has any connection to the person under arrest.
Yeah, and what's interesting, Chris, we look at Kegan and then we look at those sketches and they don't really look alike. I look at the guy walking and I don't know, Kegan looks a little bit larger than that guy, but I don't know, maybe gained weight over time. I'm not sure. But all of this is just, it's eye-opening, I think, for everyone that we should never assume or presume or convict someone or point the finger too early, because strange things can happen like this.
Yeah, no, 100%, Vinny. Remember the rule number one in any investigation: all behavior has a purpose. And so you want to measure off, what's the emotional and the emotional age of somebody like a Kline. if he's into, CP child porn and a couple of the other, problems that he's into, does that correlate to the sophistication and the experience potentially of a subject like this who's walking on the bridge and may have been fantasizing, much more further along than Kline could ever get to. And then these poor little victims, present themselves as a perfect opportunity. So absolutely, I agree with Bobby 1,000%. You have to be very careful. And having spent 13 years in homicide, I can tell you how many of these nests I've gone into and said, we're just in the wrong spot.
So, Kevin, when we think about the potential that it is someone, it's not Kegan Kline. This is, the red herring, an awful coincidence. That area, like for a crime of opportunity in that area.
Okay, so just to go along with what Vinny's talking about the area, crime of opportunity, it's very secluded there from my knowledge on this area. And Don's question, isn't that bridge a popular visiting spot? How did Richard know no one else would show up? And that was sort of what I was thinking at first, but it seems like the more I'm researching, the more it's becoming evident that like the bridge area really wasn't something that many people frequented. We showed a little bit of the drone footage of the area in the beginning of the stream, and it's just very like treacherous looking. It was built in 1891 and it was abandoned in 1987. So it hasn't had like a railroad or service like that for, decades at this point. And it seems like it was just the people who frequented it were people who were comfortable with the area and probably like locals, like, the teens there. In my first live stream in the last week we did, it spoke about how Richard Allen's family actually were people who frequented the bridge area. But what I am gathering is it's not really something that a lot of people go to. It's just kind of like a small number of people who are comfortable going there. And it's just very, like I said, treacherous, falling apart, not maintained, hasn't been maintained for a while. So it did seem like in my research, like if you wanted to do something like that, like it wasn't as popular as say maybe like a trail where people bring their dogs to.
How busy is it? How many people are walking around? And if someone was to just be walking around, would they necessarily bump into someone?
It's not a super busy area. It's not a super abandoned area. I think if you go there, maybe over the course of the day, at that time, maybe you'd see a couple of dozen people. And I could imagine if someone is patient enough and just sit there benches nearby, if you could just sit on a bench and wait, you might have an opportunity for a crime of opportunity.
And I just want to get back to that search of the river that we were talking about. Did anything come of that search, Anya? Was anything recovered? Any evidence? Anything made public?
So as far as we heard from our sources, there was no blockbuster evidence, as far as we know, obtained. So I'm talking about like a murder weapon or something that would have some sort of dramatic impact on the case. Hearing from our sources, we didn't necessarily get the sense that nothing was found, but certainly nothing that would end up having a huge impact on the case. So that was sort of how we left it with the water search, although obviously they were out there for weeks and weeks. So it was a pretty large, expensive, and ongoing venture for while it lasted. So it certainly indicated that there was enough confidence to have it. But whether it ultimately was helpful, it seems like, from what we understand, not necessarily.
All right, folks, don't go anywhere. The big breaking news tonight, it looks like there's a huge break, a huge development in the Delphi murder of Libby German and Abby Williams.
And again, this was before they did that Monday press conference. And hello, Delaney, and everyone else who has joined us. Carolina, hello.
Spectrum Internet now delivers faster start.
That was a video from Liberty German's cell phone released by law enforcement early on in this murder investigation. And for years, many speculated that the man in that video may have been Ronald Logan, the owner of the property where the girls' bodies were found. Law enforcement even looked into Logan, writing in a probable cause warrant. Logan's physical build is consistent with that of the male suspect videoed by Liberty German on the Monon High Bridge, but
Okay, so this is what we were talking about earlier in the stream. His voice is not inconsistent with the person in the video. So interesting. You know, I feel with a complete confidence that Kegan Kline is not Bridge Guy. Ron Logan, I have questions. You know, I don't have a video of him walking. I know he was on the news, wasn't he? I need to go back and look at all that because it would be interesting to kind of compare walking, gaits, and voice and all that. But regardless, I feel like this case is moving forward, even if we don't know exactly who Bridge Guy is just yet. Like, I feel like information is coming out in other means than just reviewing that video over and over. What do you guys think?
They also write his voice was not a match. But he did speak with a reporter from Indianapolis news station WTHR the day after the bodies were discovered, and he does have a similar appearance. Let's take a look back at some of what he said.
Who would have thought they'd let their children out to do something special that day, take a trip down and then turn out a disaster like this? The area that they were in is very hard to get to. I mean, you can't get there unless you walk there. I mean, so somebody would be walking with them or something.
Now, Ronald Logan has since passed away and was never publicly named as a suspect. Still with me, retired FBI Special Agent Bobby Chacon, host of The Interview Room with Chris McDonough, and hosts of the Murder Sheet podcast, Anya Kane and Kevin Greenlee. All right, let's talk about Logan. Now, the thing about Logan, Kevin, didn't he lie about an alibi? Wasn't that part of the problem with, you know, the bodies are found on his property? Kind of looks a little bit like the video, give or take, but then lied about his alibi?
Yeah, at the time of the murders, or roughly just after the murders, he was actually at a pet store in a nearby city where he had driven there himself. And as it turned out, he had some drunk driving convictions and other charges. He wasn't supposed to be behind the wheel of a car at all. And so he contacted a relative of his and asked his relative.
Thank you, Open Minds, for being a member for 13 months. We really appreciate your continued support. So thank you so much.
To say, well, no, he wasn't driving, he was with me and I was driving. So yes, he lied about the timing and he lied about who he was with.
Chris, it's unbelievable, right? It's another one of those turns in this case. Well, it's found on his property. Kind of looks like the guy in the video. He's lying about who he's with and everything. It's almost as if he was trying to frame himself for the murder.
Yeah, it certainly is interesting, Vinny, and that's why it's critical for any of the pre-incident indicators, like, you know, because these two children were, you know, they kind of put themselves into a little bit higher risk category, but it's going to be more important to study the individual that they have in custody to see if they had some kind of cross where their paths had crossed consistently, because where, you know, you just don't show up on that bridge in the afternoon and, you know, these two little girls are there. Now, it could be a coincidence, but my money's going to be on this individual is familiar with these two girls at some point in the investigation. The investigators are going to, you know, pull that up.
You know, I see it every week, Bobby, on Law and Order. Every week, you know, a suspect or someone that's being looked at in a murder investigation lies about their alibi, but they're totally innocent. But they're totally innocent of the murder. I mean, that could be the case. Very well could be the case with Ronald Logan. I mean, give us some sense of like the real world. Does that really happen in the real world? I know you're also a screenwriter, so
I don't write on that show, but
right.
I could. But yes, and it drives investigators crazy. I used to have to sit people down because, you know, when I did drugs and gang cases, those are, you know, oftentimes your witnesses are, you know, kind of shady people, and I would have to sit them down and say, look, I don't care about this other stuff over here. I need you to tell me the truth about this. You know, and I felt like they always had a reason to lie, but it wasn't my reason. It wasn't the reason that related to my case. And that's what you have here with Logan, right? He's got some other arrests. It might be on parole or something, and he's worried about that stuff, and he did something wrong by driving his car when he shouldn't be driving. That stuff drives investigators crazy because he's lying for another reason, but it makes him look like he's guilty for this case. And so really, I used to just sometimes tell people and sometimes get approval from the prosecutor, say, like, look, just be clear with me why you did this or why you were in a certain place, because oftentimes they have numerous reasons why they have to lie or want to lie, and it doesn't have to do with my case. And that may be what happened here with Logan. It makes him look good for this case, but really he has other reasons why he's lying. You have unless you do a background on the person, you have no idea why their motivations to lie to you are. And if you find out they're lying, you automatically assume it's because of your case. But you really have to do some digging and realize maybe they're lying for some other reason. And I think that's what happened in this case.
And it's unbelievable. If the person was
So that FBI agent pretty much doesn't think that Ron Logan is involved, from my gathering. You know, him lying was just kind of like not a good look, just a little bit of a stain on things right now. But I did want to pause and just say thank you to Nicholas for sending me a PayPal. I really appreciate it. I won't say your last name, but thank you so much. I really appreciate your support. So thank you very much. And everyone else who has joined us, thanks for being here, and give a like. And Tony said, anyone is capable of doing anything, in my opinion. Yeah. And this case is another just prime example of Richard Allen, like many other perpetrators, living a double life and just having the front of what he shows to the public and to everyone while he was working at CBS. And, you know, can I help you here? And let me give the family these photos for the funeral for free there, and all this stuff. It's just what was really going on in this guy's head and mind, and all that is just very dark. And same with Kegan Kline, you know, like the searches on the devices that were linked to Kegan Kline, very alarming, disturbing. I didn't give you guys the full words of what was being searched, but the transcript has it there, and you guys can see it for yourself, and we'll look deeper into those transcripts as well. So I can't wait till enough comes out about Allen to see someone break down his psychology. Kegan too. I agree. I want to know a lot more about Richard Allen's upbringing. I feel like it's already alarming, you know, that he has, we talked about it earlier in the stream, like the DV calls from police department to his house, you know, his poor wife, basically. And it just makes me wonder how much in the dark she was to things. Like I said, that she had voiced on Facebook, which I think now has been deleted, that they really needed this vacation, which they went on in 2018, a year after the murders. So it just makes me wonder what was going on in their home life and their relationship behind closed doors, like after the murders, like for her to say something along the lines of, and I'm not quoting it directly, but that they really needed that vacation. I'm like, I don't know. It's just very mysterious. And I hope we get more answers and all that.
was arrested today was completely like under the radar. And this could be exactly like Law and Order. The first two suspects who look so guilty and so connected, the twist could be completely not connected to the murder. Wow. All right. Guests are staying with us because I want to talk about what's going to happen Monday, what that's going to be like, what we can expect to learn, what questions we want answered on Monday. In the meantime, coming up next hour.
Determined to use her cell phone to record this man
in prison without the possibility of parole.
Emotional victim impacts.
The precedent for the next mass killing. Determined to use her cell phone to record this man on the old Monon High Bridge is credited with giving police one of the best tips in the ongoing investigation. Libby and her good friend Abby Williams were on the historic trail on February 13th, 2017. Before they were found dead a day later. The video and sketch of the suspect have circulated around the world.
As the day comes, I just feel more hopeful that we'll get to an arrest and that in the end we'll get a conclusion, no matter how long that's going to take.
We also believe this person is from Delphi, currently or has previously lived here.
Moving video of the suspect on the Monon High Bridge was released. This video that Libby German secretly recorded when the suspect approached her and Abby on the bridge back on February the 13th, 2017. State police also shared a bit more of the audio from that video. In the past, we've heard the three words, down the hill. Now listen closely to the new release.
Today's the day. That's the big news. We believe that someone has been arrested. Monday, though, is an even bigger day when we will learn some of the information. Still with me tonight, Bobby Chacon, Chris McDonough, and Anya Kane and Kevin Greenlee from the Murder Sheet podcast. Chris from the interview room with Chris McDonough. And of course, Bobby Chacon, retired FBI special agent. Here's some questions I think that need to be answered, or hopefully will be answered on Monday when we have this press conference. Is the arrestee the person in the cell phone video? Is it the person in the sketches? Is that person connected to the Anthony Schatz social media account or Kegan Kline? Anya Kane, Kevin Greenlee, what questions will you have Monday?
I'm really interested in knowing whether or not police believe this person arrested today acted alone or if he had accomplices. I'm curious to know, does this arrest close the books on this, or should we expect more arrests to come? I'd be interested to know what evidence would be listed in a probable cause affidavit that led to this arrest. I'm frankly also interested in what exactly will they be charging him with.
Let me ask you, Chris, what questions do you have tonight?
I love what I just heard there, but at the same time, how are we going to be able to support this family through phase 2? And, you know, if they've got their guy, which it looks like, according to them, they do, they put bracelets on him, we're going to have to, you know, gather around him. And how can we do that? How can we do that as a community and as a nation?
And I'll tell you this, Chris, you get ready for that trial, and it's, you know, someone off the radar, not connected to anyone else that has ever been looked at. I mean, that's where the defense is going to point the finger in that trial. I mean, to me, it's extremely obvious they're going to point the finger over there. Bobby Chacon, how much do you think we will actually learn on Monday? Because I mean, you would fit in with the Indiana State Police in the way you would never want to release information. I understand that. So what would you expect if, let's presume that the person they've arrested is the person they believe did it themselves, they're not investigating anyone else. How much information do you think we could get on Monday?
Well, that's going to be up to the United States Police, obviously, right? But let's get a little to the probable cause affidavit to the arrest warrant. Now, you do not put everything you have in there. They are not going to, divulge every single thing they have. I understand that's frustrating to the public, but they put in just enough that they need to establish the probable cause for the arrest. Now, my first question is, what actually is the person charged with? Is it murder, murder 1, murder 2? Is it manslaughter? Is it an accessory? You know, we don't know exactly what he's being charged with or how he's charged. I assume it's an information or a complaint, not an indictment. I assume it's not a grand jury indictment, so, but it could be. So I want to know how he was charged and exactly what he's charged with, because if he hasn't actually charged with the murders himself, and that, you know, your guest earlier said, is there anybody else involved? So first of all, you have to start with exactly what he's charged with and why. If he's actually charged with the murders, how, again, we're not going to know everything because they don't put everything from the investigative case file into that affidavit for arrest. The minimum amount they need necessary, because you want to still keep as much of the information guarded as you can as you move along in the process. Discovery will start soon, and then we will start getting leaks of this information out as the discovery process moves in. Discovery is where the prosecution turns over to defense all the evidence that it's most of the evidence that it's gathered during the investigation. And there will be, as you said, there will be the defense pointing to other Mr. Logan or Kegan Kline and all these other suspects. But that's very common in an investigation. We always start with a wide pool of suspects and we narrow as we go along. I don't think we will hear a lot about the physical evidence. I think that will be held back a little bit. Just because you don't want a lot of that stuff getting out because it's not necessary. And so I don't think you'll hear a lot about that. You may get some DNA evidence released. You may get some results of DNA from the crime scene and from the individual arrested. I don't know.
And remember, there is some rumor going around that they've linked a certain type of hair, like they think maybe like a dog hair or cat hair. Some rumor is going around that there is a link to hair at the scene to possibly being tied back to Richard Allen. I don't know the exact hearsay about that, but from my understanding, it is hearsay. And good morning, Lisa, and it's good to see you, Mia. And thank you, Yep, for becoming a member to the channel. I really appreciate your support. And thank you so much for being here, everybody. So if you could all just give me a like, that's really all I'm asking. And thank you very much for your support.
But you certainly will not get the entire story yet. And the public just has to be patient as the process goes on, because the only thing that's important is that we get a conviction in this case.
Absolutely.
And that has to happen, you know, with the process. We have to follow due process.
And by the way, I always forget to mention, Bobby Chacon, also an attorney. So Anya and Kevin, I'll give you guys the final word here. You know, the other thing that I wanted to understand is why now, right? Was something recently developed, and was it, even if they can't give us the specific evidence, was it forensic scientific type evidence, or was it testimonial type evidence? So I'll give you guys wrap up where we are and how much you're looking forward to Monday.
Yeah, we're certainly looking forward to Monday. As journalists, all we can do is essentially document what the police are doing and what the investigation is doing. And we can say that in this case, you know, we were told whatever happened, it was maybe a bit of a twist, even for people inside the investigation. So, I mean, I don't know if we can say what exactly happened, but it seems like it has caught nearly everyone by surprise somewhat.
Absolutely. Well, thank you all so much for spending the hour with me. Murder Sheet is the podcast. Check it out, folks. The Interview Room with
All right, everybody. Thank you again for being here for this live stream. We're going to conclude it. I'm going to still be following this case, obviously, and digging through those transcripts with Kline. So I'll bring forth anything that I think stands out. But that's pretty much it. I really appreciate your guys' input today. And for those watching on replay, thank you so much. And please give me a like and comment your thoughts down below, because I do like to read all those. Tomorrow, we are going to do a live stream on Debbie Collier and just some stuff I want to go through with that case as well. So we're also following the Quentin Simon case right now. There has been no updates, sadly. As far as I know, they're still searching the dump for him. So we're following all these cases closely. I'm also working on a Chris Watts family documentary behind the scenes. So in case I do a few live streams and then drop off for a few days, just check back with me for the next live stream, because there's always things that I'm working on behind the scenes. Okay. And if you haven't checked out my partner in crime, I'm pulling up her live right now. It's on the Ashley Bush case right now, and it's on CDT's channel. So if you want to discuss true crime further, we'll be over there in 42 minutes, and we're going to go through that case, and I'll be in chat and moderating there. So again, thank you so much for being here, and I really appreciate you all very much. And yeah, remember to be polite and to give me a like. And I just appreciate all the support and the replay players or watchers too. I'm so awkward at goodbyes, but see you guys later.